The broadcast hasn't started, Marcy. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the first Friday Mastermind of 2019. I hope everybody had a happy new year. My name is Dave Savage, CEO of Mortgage Coach. We got the whole leadership crew here today, and we have special guest Bill Hart. What's up, Bill?
Hey, man. Just hanging out here on Red Shirt Friday. I see Michelle got the memo.
I'm close.
You're
hey,
close.
I'm here and I'm representing Red Shirt Friday, just so everyone knows. Come on, Bill. Nothing but
Well done, buddy.
Thank
you so much.
Oh, man. I wish I could have just pulled that, Todd Bookspan Superman move. All right, guys. So we got the whole leadership crew. We got Jen Duplessis. Jen, Happy New Year. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be back. I've been sick for the last couple of weeks, so I'm just tickled to be back, ready to get started for the new year. And, gosh, this is our, third year doing this? And we started to head into that third year. It's crazy.
Yeah,
so thanks for having me, everybody.
Yeah, well, it started off as a 90-day experiment, and here we are going on 3 years of awesomeness. Michelle Town, thank you for being here, and Happy New Year to you, too.
Happy New Year, everybody. I am, as Jen says, I'm super honored to be here, and it's always a pleasure to see Bill. He's, one of the people that started me in my my quest for coaching. And Todd, I just love him, and Dave, you're just incredible, and I'm very honored to be here with everybody and to be on 3 years. It's just incredible. And like Jen said, I've been off for the last 2 weeks. It's been a kind of a reset button for me, and boy, I tell you, I'm so glad I did that, because I am rip roaring ready to go, and I feel like nothing can knock me off my little rock right now. I mean, I can teeter totter a little bit, but I'm so balanced. Like my core strength is so strong right now. So it's been so amazing. So happy 2019, everybody.
Yeah, and by the way, you closed the year pretty strong. How many loans did you do, and where did you end up the year?
We closed 198, helped 198 families this year. And the last one happened to be one of my very first clients from 10 years ago. So it was it was great. It was like a great little celebration. And then we closed just under 112 million this year. So we're pretty happy.
Yeah, you should be pretty happy. And by the way, guys, not this next coming Friday, but the following Friday, we're going to feature Michelle Town as the special guest. So she'll be interviewing herself and getting interviewed, and we'll talk about how she hit those amazing numbers and what she learned and what she's doing in 2019. So put that on your calendar. So right before we bring in Bill, I want to share the Mortgage Coach Facebook group. I want to just, first of all, everybody who has made a post on this Facebook group, thank you. Everybody that has commented and added value, thank you. And hey, if you are not commenting, you're not posting, but you're paying attention and you're learning from what's being shared in this group, thank you. It's really been a great group, and I think it delivered a lot of value this year. A couple things I wanted to shine the light on. Bliss Sawyer made a post on the 2nd, and she shared what Todd and I are calling a personal value proposition video. And her ask was, if you've done one of these, if you could share it in comments. I think the last Friday of this month, we're going to dedicate the Friday Mastermind to, why should you create a video like this, and what are the best practices to a personal value prop video. So guys, I'm going to take this out of announcements. Right now it's at the top in announcements. It will be out within an hour or two. But I did want to just feature it in today's call, put some attention around it, and make sure that you guys all share your videos. I also wanted to shine a light on this interview I did with Wally Elderberry 2 days ago. It was my first interview of the year. And I would just say it's a requirement. Every mortgage coach needs to listen to this. He shares how he doubled his past customer referrals in 2018, gives you, some scripts, gives you what he learned, what his sales process is, what technology he's using. So to me, this is just something that homework assignment between now and next Friday. Everybody check this out, take some notes. And then my last ask before we bring in Bill is I posted at the beginning of December, I asked 2 questions of the community. and we just haven't got enough comments on this yet. We need to know where you guys are at in terms of how much business you're getting from your past customers. And this is going to be a major thrust again for the entire year. So please, comment. I'm going to leave this in the announcements through the end of the day, and then I'm going to take it out of announcements. So with that said, Todd reached out to me a couple days ago and said, hey, I just talked to Coach Bill Hart, and he is super pumped. And I was just like, wow, what better way to start our first mastermind than having Coach Bill Hart. So Todd, I'll let you take it away from here. I'm going to actually jump off video and let it be the you and Bill show, unless I have something to ask or say.
Awesome. Well, you know what? It's truly an honor to, get to be here. Wishing you guys all a happy new year. It's truly an honor to get to introduce someone who really in my mortgage career and in my personal life has been one of my biggest mentors, friends. I think most of you know that when I really started getting momentum in the mortgage business, over 15 years ago, I hired a coach early on. I got really lucky, and I had the guy who had one spot left and squeezed me in, and that was Coach Bill Hart, who was my coach for 4 years. And until at that time when I joined Masters Coach, Building Champions Elite Program, and I was forced to switch coaches. Unfortunately, I was kicked off of Bill's rotation, which was a sad day. Luckily now I get to spend every quarter I see Bill live because we coach Masters Coach together. And so when Bill and I were talking and Dave and I had been chatting like, hey, how are we going to kick off the year? I really thought to myself, what a better way to do it than the guy who really probably spends more hours in the coach's seat talking to the best of the best, which is Bill. He's talking to the best leaders in the mortgage space, the biggest producers, and he's going to bring that valuable content to us today. So that is my long rambling interview or introduction, which probably doesn't do justice to the man, the legend. Here he is, author of White Collar Warrior, Coach Bill Hart.
Buddy, if I could bottle that up and take it every place I go, introductions come and go, but that one was stellar. So thank you for that. I appreciate it very much. And thanks for representing with the White Collar Warrior shirt today. Very well played. For those of you unfamiliar with Red Shirt Friday, that's Remember Everyone Deployed, RED. And the men and women that are on the front lines that do what they do to make it possible for us to do what we do in safety and security. We want to honor them every single Friday. So Todd, thank you, buddy. It is so my honor to be here. We made a couple of little adjustments. I started a little earlier this morning for a 2-hour session in Arizona, and dude, I'm fired up to be here. I'm super excited about talking a little bit about, as you said, what is it that I hear, at this point in my career, Todd, on Monday, on the, whatever that is that the 7th? I am 16 years in this chair, which we just figured out the other day is 19,000 hours of coaching sessions. That's a lot.
Incredible. I mean, that's like coaching sessions, right? That's not, here and there mentoring someone. That's you actually doing what you're doing, sitting in there, headset on, and talking.
Right.
And, again, I guess I'd have to look at it and see, but, I guess I'm honored that a lot of those hours belong to me as you sharpen me as not just a loan officer and a leader, but as a good man, as a good husband and father. So thank you, my friend.
Well, buddy, it's always been my honor to play that role in your life, and you now are doing that same thing with others, and I love to see that, Todd. You're a great example of what's possible in the world. And I think that's probably the perfect transition actually into this whole dialogue about, I told you I wanted to talk about what are the 3 things that people are going to be doing in 2019 to gain market share. And this is not just something I pull out of my head. This is, to your point, these are the things that I'm pulling out of conversations each and every day with some of the very best people in the mortgage industry, many of them in our Masters Coach group. But I landed on this sort of John Maxwellian label for this, right? So here are the 3 things. You ready? So everything we're going to talk about fall into these 3 things. The most successful people that I see that are gearing up to take market share in 2019, and Michelle and Jen, I trust that you two would find the same to be true. They're getting serious, they're getting clear, and they're getting going. So like I said, very, very John Maxwellian, right? But it's, It's get serious, get clear, get going. And so what I mean by get serious is, if we look back over the last, let's call it 8 years in this industry, maybe 9 now that we're in 2019, probably 2010, I think for most people, they would say, yeah, you know, that's when the phone was ringing and rates were low and things were good and fish were jumping in the boat. And, you know, I don't mean to diminish the difficulty of loan manufacturing, right? We had Dodd-Frank and we had CMPB and we had, you know, all kinds of things that were making it a little bit more difficult. But the truth of the matter is there was demand. And when there's demand, right, we're in a capacity marketplace. Well, that's shifting right now, right? That's shifting. Rates have gone up a little bit. Inventories are low. The phone's not ringing as much. And so what your lower producers in this industry are experiencing is, wow, I'm not getting as many leads from the realtors that I used to get, so I'm really in pain. And so I think to Dave's point about the question about like the interview with Wally and the question about how many past borrowers do you have in your database, I think that leads nicely into the other side of the equation, which is getting clear, right? Getting clear about what this business can be. It is for many people right now. And I think individually what you want to focus on, my experience is this. In coaching, I think that there are a lot of, and even training, there are a lot of pretty formulaic approaches to being successful in any industry. And sometimes it works really, really well because that particular recipe works with that particular chef really well. But the way that we approach coaching at Building Champions, and Todd, you know this, is that it's much more individualized to who is the client? What has been their previous experience? What is their natural wiring? How do they show up in the marketplace or just at work or at home? And how do we capitalize on that? So I think getting clear on that, there was one thought I wanted to leave you with today. If you're listening to this right now, that would be it. It would be more about, instead of buying out into somebody else's vision about this is what you should do, maybe that's the perfect thing, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's something that should be a bit more customized for you. And then number 3 is get going. And that's just the whole, as a coach, I just got to tell you, like if you're not on it every single day, Dan Keller called it out beautifully the other day where he said, as a baseball coach, he said, it's all about reps. It's all about reps and sets, right? So that's what it is right now. I've got to be disciplined. This is not a time. If you're binge watching on Netflix, you're not in the business. You're just not in the business. This is not that season. This is the season to wake up earlier. You know, Michelle, you mentioned it was like 37, 38 degrees, right? It's like, who wants to get up when it's that cold? Todd, it's freezing in Arizona right now, right?
47 degrees. Like, you know, that's why I'm wearing a sweatshirt. In fact, it's funny. I got a parka over there. I'm thinking about going to get it on because it's really cold in here.
So people in the rest of the country hate us right now as we're talking about that, right? Because they're telling you, yeah, well, you know, yesterday in Colorado, it was like 12 below, like, give me a break. Anyway, the point is now's the time to wake up earlier, to really consider what the structure of your day looks like. Who is it that you're going to be calling? What is it you're building? What podcasts are you listening to? What calls like this are you investing in? What books are you reading? Those are the people that are going to gain market share. And mark my words, there are people right now that are in Texas. I know it's politically incorrect, but I've never been known for being politically correct. In Texas, there's an old expression that says fat, dumb, and happy. Fat, dumb, and happy. And if you're fat, dumb, and happy right now in the mortgage industry, in about 90 days, you're going to be out of the business. So here's what we know. You're not on this call, but you compete with people that might find themselves in that category where they're kind of blinking their eyes like, what happened? I don't have enough leads. Well, gee, if I had 20 realtors, now I need to call 40 realtors. Okay. I mean, that's one mistake. I believe that what we need to do is think about diversifying, Todd. And one of the things that we did at our last Masters Coach event in Santa Barbara, and Todd, you made this happen, is you invited Kenny Klaus, one of the top realtors in the country out of Phoenix, who I had interviewed years ago, and he and I have had a Facebook relationship. You invited him to come speak to our group. And so, you know, in that room, we had some of the top mortgage professionals in the country, and we had a travel agent, we had a financial professional, and we had Kenny Klaus as a realtor. And Kenny is one of these guys that I think you and I could describe him as scrappy.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? He's scrappy. He's a former FedEx driver who had a route of 1,700, who decided that he wanted to get into the real estate business. And he fought his way into the business and now competes as your wife and your team do in Phoenix right now with all of the tech players that start in Arizona. They always start in Arizona. And so whether it's, Purple Bricks or Open Door or Zillow's iBuyer program, Absolutely. It all starts there. And so if you're a real estate agent, it would be easy to say, whoa, it was all really good. And now there's all this competition. And yet what Kenny brought to our group is a very different perspective. And so you're going to see me looking off screen from time to time, because I've now watched your interview with him, Todd, 3 times. And I've written down specific comments that he made that I think will encourage our audience today. He said, we're pivoting hard right now with technology in the industry, and some are allowing it to become between us and the client. Think about that. Think about that in the mortgage space right now. If we point to Quicken, right, and say, we are losing market share over there, that's just a death rattle. It's just a matter of time before you're gonna be having to figure out something else to do. He said we can either be enabled by tech, or tech can enable us. And Dave, that's something you've been saying for the last year or so that I know of. Kenny's whole point. So think about this as a loan officer. Now, this is a guy that has averaged, correct me if I'm wrong on this, wasn't he averaging a deal a day for the last 5 years? Is that accurate?
It's even more than that. Yeah, but it's been a minimum of that. And he's at 135 million. And he's the guy that someone described to me. I called him a free agent. There was a top guy who ran a team here in the Valley who had reached out to me and said, hey, I'm thinking about joining a team, because he didn't want to lead anymore. He wanted to be part of an organization and really just be able to recruit and focus on mentoring others. And long story short, he had only thought he was going to talk to a few people, and ended up having over the top 24 teams all reached out when they heard the rumor he was available. And he chose to go to work on Kenny's team in a sales leadership role, because he said Kenny was the agent who was looking where the puck was going. And I thought, that really resonated with me, and that's what we took away from him when he was with us.
It is. Dave, did you want to interject here?
Yeah, I did. I want to remind everybody listening to this that this is a mastermind community. So if you have a question or a takeaway, post it either in Zoom or in the Facebook Live group. Bill, I did say something that I was taking away. I don't know if this is where you're leading us, but you said it's time to diversify. And my takeaway is to diversify to referral partners that can help you get to the buyer before the realtor, so that, whether it's, and that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about past clients, is not only do they equal loans, but they equal, opportunities and referrals before the realtor. So, I mean, by the way, is that where you were going? CPA, yeah. Financial planners,
yeah,
and pretty much any partner that helps you beat the agent to the buyer. Is that fair enough to say?
That's a big part of it. I don't think it's all of it. I think one of the things that I heard from Kenny, Dave, is, and Todd, thank you for the sharpening also about him. But these are the kind of people that I think we need to look at right now, particularly in a sister industry that we can be so encouraged by. His thing was, remember, he was a FedEx driver, right? So he said, I would show up at people's front doors and I would know them. I would know where to put the package, whether or not I was going to ring the doorbell. I would know who they were. And so he said, I began to realize that's the way that I was going to build my business. And so he did it as a realtor, not only with the neighborhoods and the individuals, but with local businesses. And Dave, think back to the first time you heard Bill Hillestead, right? I think one of the smartest minds we have in the mortgage industry from a marketing perspective, maybe too smart for his own good, because very often the stuff just goes over people's heads. But he would always say, I can remember him for the last 5 years saying, if you just went out with your phone and you sat down with a local business and interviewed them, and I know we've had people that have done this, But he said, if you just interviewed them and started pushing that out on social, that kind of connectivity where you're just, the scripting would be so simple, right? I was on the phone with a guy yesterday, and he had a smoothie that he was having, and he said, yeah, it's called Kai's. It's right next door, and it's a healthy smoothie. And I said, so what would happen if you walked in there and you just said, I'd like to shoot a little video and just talk a little bit about your business, and I'd like to push it out, see if we can't get you some more visibility. And in the process, of course, I'll get more too. Would there be any downside to you? And he said, no. What local business owner wouldn't love that? So I would say not only other referral partners, Dave, beyond realtors. So let's come back to this conversation, because I think there's clearly a realtor play, but there is no doubt that the game is changing. We need to have financial planners, CPAs, divorce attorneys, insurance agents. I just sat with a new insurance agent, State Farm, the other day. He's got a beautiful conference room out here in Moore Park, huge book of business. I said, I'm just curious, how many mortgage professionals have called on you over the years to just talk to you about your business and see if you could partner? And he said, none. I've never had anybody do that. None.
I love that. I want to just add another thought,
yeah,
and then I'll jump back off screen. But I love that idea for so many reasons. I mean, not only is it a new referral partner, but you're building your personal brand. You're becoming that digital mayor of your local marketplace, which we talk a lot about. And everybody who's on this call all year long, I'm going to have 3 central themes. You need to prospect, you need to become a master advisor, and you need to build a personal brand. Those are like the 3 legs of the stool. And I love that strategy, because it's like the trifecta. I mean, it's a prospecting strategy.
That's right.
It's an ability to be an advisor, and you're building personal brand. So it's like the trifecta strategy. And of course, it helps you get to the buyer before the realtor. And by the way, why do we get to the buyer before the realtor? So we have leads to give back to the realtors, and we become a more valuable partner. We become an essential partner. So, hey, I'm going to jump back up. I love this.
Okay, bud.
All right, so I'm going to throw something in real quick, so I interrupt you, Bill. One thing that you mentioned, Bill Hillestead, if you guys all remember when we interviewed Bill earlier in 2018, and he talked about the strategy that Bill was talking about interviewing, one of the people that he highlighted their YouTube channel was Kenny Klaus.
That's right.
So ironically, they're good friends, and they've worked together. And we've got a couple of questions, people asking, what's the interview that Bill's referring to? It was an interview that we did at Masters Coach, which is our private coaching group that Bill and I are both involved in. And so it's not readily available now, but I'll just make an action plan that I will reach out to Kenny, and I will get an interview with him that we can share with this.
Great idea.
And get him to run through some stuff. So just know that I'm committed. I'll put that on my list for today to do.
Yeah, that's a great idea, bud. Thank you for bringing that up. And incidentally, somebody on this call may very well be a prospect for the Masters Coach. And, it's an annual program. Our first event is the first week in February. You can go to themasterscoach.com and apply there. It's not for everybody. It's not an inexpensive program. But the idea is to get like-minded people in a room, stimulate them with ideas, programs, outside speakers, create an environment with peer sharpening so that they can take their game up. And that's something, Todd, you lived for how many years as a member?
I was a member for 8.5 years, and I just wrapped up 2.5 years as a coach. And so I've spent, more than a decade. That's, I could say those are my people, right? I mean, that's really where I go to get refreshed and energized. And, it's been an honor and a pleasure to be part of the group and now be a leader in the group, and really have that different experience out, where you're actually belly to belly with a small group, sharpening each other, learning from each other. And yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought it up. I think it's just a great opportunity. If there is someone on here who's looking for something different to do, maybe that's part of getting serious. Actually, it's probably part of getting serious, getting clear, and getting going for this year.
All 3. Well, there might be somebody, right? And we would love to invite you before we close the books on that. But look, to Dave's point, and Dave, I love the 3 bullets there: prospect, become a master advisor, and build a personal brand. So here's what I believe with my heart and soul, and I'm probably going to upset somebody, but I just believe this, and it's what I said up front. I don't think what most people need is a recipe. Like go do these 12 things and do them every week. I know that can work for some people, but what I believe is what's more important is to really get clear on who you are, what's your background, how do you show up, what are your personal strengths, what is your training, what are the things that you gravitate to. So let me give you an example. There's a woman that I coach in Southern California. I just started coaching her. She's a $45 million producer, and yet she's always gravitated to coaching. She's a mortgage lender. She went to the Tom Ferry organization and said, what would it take to become a coach? And she's just finished certification, and she's going to be a coach for Tom Ferry. But it's not an either or, right? What she's going to do is she's going to have a small group of clients. And now when she shows up in her marketplace, calling on the same realtors everybody else is calling on, the thing that's going to differentiate her is that she's a real estate coach, which means she's not sitting on the other side of the table. She's sitting on their side of the table, right? She can come alongside them in a coaching perspective, bring them action plans, bring them business planning tools. That's one great strategy. So what I hope you get out of our time together is, please hear me. I'm not saying go follow this formula. I'm saying open our blinders a little bit, because if we're really, really honest about, let's call it that last 8 to 9 years in the mortgage business, if it truly was a capacity play, meaning the phone is ringing, leads are coming in, and everything that I'm building is based on how to do as good a job as I can of moving them down the assembly line, then when the market shifted, whenever that was, June or so, when things started to change, and suddenly people are looking at a different number of leads coming their way, I'm saying to you, the solution is not necessarily going and buying leads. Might be fantastic. That might be the best thing that you could do. I've got a client right now, Joe New in Texas. I think I've talked about it before, and Todd, you know this. He's got a custom sales funnel that he has built inside the Facebook ecosystem. That is, people have to answer 11 questions. By the time they get to the bottom of that, they literally show up on his phone as a lead. He's getting, I think, a 5-to-1 return on investment on that. It's not inexpensive, but if you can get a 5-to-1 ROI, maybe that's the thing to do. But if you don't have the budget for that, don't worry. Or that, not even I talked to a guy yesterday about it, and he's like, dude, seriously, you could pull my toenails off with pliers before I would pursue any kind of leads that I have to buy. If that's you, then I say go deep on the database. So let's talk about that for a second, right? Kenny Klaus told us he's got 30,000 people in his database. Is that right?
Yeah, because he's the master of farming. That was what his one of his things he's really pushed out over time. So he owns a couple of zip codes in the West Valley here of Phoenix, and he goes in deep with his database. So I love hearing you bring that up, and I'll shut up and let you start talking.
Well, go ahead, Dave.
Real quick. There's been a number of people ask for where they can watch that interview. Todd, could you make a note that after this call, we'll share it in the Facebook group so people can check it out?
Yes, I will see if I can get permission to share that interview. If not, Dave, I will definitely commit to getting Kenny to come into our community, and we'll do a new interview with them, the 2019 version of it.
Perfect, because we've had like 3 different people ask about it. So everybody who asked about it,
Either way, Dave, we'll just do that. Todd, let you and I talk about that off camera. If it's easy to recreate and you want to just do a new one, let's do it. But otherwise, let's just share that.
Cool.
It's a great interview. It's a great story. There's probably about 25 minutes of content, maybe 40 when you get to the Q&A that you'll really care about. And Dave, we'd be happy to do that. You're always very open and sharing with us, and we want to share with your community as well. So look, the whole database thing, to me, I've got a note right now, Todd, on my, and maybe you know this, Dave, but I've got a note on my to-do list that says I want to reach out to David Jaffe. So David, if you happen to be listening, which I don't think you are, I want to know how many people you've got in your database and how long you've been in the business. Dave, do you happen to know that number?
I do not know the number, but I interviewed David pre-meltdown, and yeah. I will reach out to him. I'll actually ping him while we're talking, and if I get the number, I'll let you know, but stay tuned.
Well, here's the reason, and there are probably some other examples, and Jen, you may be this person, and Michelle, you may be this person. David's just the one that I know, and he's in my backyard. He's right here in Westlake Village. I want to say he's got 10,000 people in his database, and it might be more than that. But what has happened because he built this database, and remember, when you think database, we in the mortgage industry think past clients. I'm going to suggest to you it's much bigger than that. Your database should consist of pre-quals, TBDs. Gary Keller calls them just Mets, right? If you've ever seen my 3 pillars of purchase production, that's one of the pillars is your database, right? Anybody you've ever spoken to, a just met is, I just spoke to this person. We didn't get to an application. We didn't even talk about mortgage. It's just somebody that I met, and I happen to know this person loves aviation like I do. That person should be in my database. This business, if you want to build a business that will withstand the ebbs and flows, you need to build your database. That's what Kenny has done. That's what David Jaffe has done. And as an industry, I know there's exceptions to this, but as an industry, we haven't done a great job with that. And we've got to build it. And my strong contention is you need to own it. It needs to be yours, and you need to build it, and you need to nurture it. And that book of business, just like an insurance agent, will always feed you. So the thing I want to wrap up with on Kenny that I think is interesting, if we look at this whole, I said in the comments today, disrupted or disruptor, right? Whether it's O-R or E-R, I looked it up and you could spell it either way, it looks like. But if you want to be a disruptor, look at what Kenny did. So Kenny said, here's the quote. He said, every time we get comfortable and say, hey, we're in a good market again, something changes, right? So he said, we moved into an REO market. And he said, my message to my 30,000 people database was avoid foreclosure, know your options, right? And then he said, well, okay, so then that happened and all those short sales occurred, and now we got a valley full of people that were renting. And he said, then I created a website called Road Back Home, and it was helping people get everything cleaned up so they could get back into their property. And he said, now with iBuyer, with Zillow's iBuyer and all of that, and I think, didn't he say he was their largest realtor in the Arizona or at least Phoenix market?
He's Open Doors, who's the original one here, and but now Zillow started in our market with a client that you used to coach is the realtor who's leading the charge on that, right? So yeah, so he's gone that direction too, and I don't want to spoil it. You can say what he's doing.
No. Well, here's what he's built now. Now he's built a site called offerdepot.com, and so what he does is he aggregates offers. So here's the thing about Kenny Klaus, you guys, and you'll love the interview. This guy is scrappy, and I'm saying this with the utmost of admiration. So I hope if Kenny watches this, he doesn't take offense. But it's in the way that he speaks, you can tell this guy is much more blue collar than white collar, right? He's not formally educated, I don't think. I don't know if there's a college degree, maybe, but you can just tell in his speech patterns, this is a guy that gets it. He is an entrepreneur. He sees when the market is shifting, and he's always ahead of it. So my encouragement to us right now as an industry is to say, your solution, in my opinion, is not the company that says, this is our comp plan, this is our pricing, this is whatever. The solution for you right now is to say, who am I? How am I going to show up in the marketplace? Where am I going to invest my time and treasure so that I can build a business that is sustainable regardless of what rates are doing, regardless of what new innovations come along that, quote, take market share from us, and that builds a sustainable business over time that feeds my family. That's my challenge to you. If you want to be a disruptor, you figure out, am I going to build a lead gen model? Am I going to go out locally? Am I going to interview some local businesses? Am I going to start pursuing like the old Jim McQuaig model, right? And Mark Klein with financial planners and financial professionals. There's any number of ways to do this, you guys, but we have to stop thinking that there is a limited or finite number of leads. And how do I go get those leads? It's going to cost me money. We have to change our mindset to say, there is a community of people in which I need to become that person that is the, what did you call it, Dave? The master advisor. They need to come to me with their questions about what the situation is and what the environment holds. Now, I want to shift gears for a second because there's another guy I want to tell you about. So write this name down, Ben Caballero. Just like it sounds, Caballero. The Guinness Book of World Records just recognized him as the top selling real estate agent in the US, having sold 3,500 homes in 2016, 4,700 in 2017, and I don't have his 2018 numbers yet. Think about that. That's 92 homes a week. How do you do that? Well, you don't do it the way that everybody else does it, right? So what this guy did is he created a site called Homes USA. And what he does is he goes to small and medium builders. He's a real estate agent, guys. Think about this. He's a real estate agent who goes to small and medium home builders, and he says, what I can do is I can create a listing management and marketing services solution for you at a fraction of the cost of what you'll do, and your properties will be on the market 10 to 30 days less because of what I do. Mark Rosenberg used to call that a blinding flash of the obvious, a BFO. Like, if I'm a realtor, why wouldn't I go to a group of sellers, right? I've got a seller with a group of listings. So if I can aggregate all of those, the Guinness Book of World Records has now recognized him as the #1 real estate agent in the world because he's figured out a new system. So my challenge to you is start thinking, how can I rock the boat? How can I do something different in my market with what I know how to do? Here's what you know how to do. You know how to fill out a 1003. You know what loan programs are available. You know what the process is. But don't just lay down to the traditional way of sourcing loans. This is the time to disrupt this industry and think about, how else can I do it? This guy, Ben Caballero, has changed the game. He's changed the game. So what are a couple of the things that I would suggest that you do? As a coach, I can tell you, and I was only partially kidding about the binge watching, right, on Netflix, but I'm only partially kidding about that. Here's what we know. I know this with Todd Bookspan. I know this with Dave Savage. I know this with Dan Keller. I know this with Josh Metal. I know this with all the top producers that I'm aware of, or I'm in their world in some fashion. They're all readers. They all listen to podcasts. They're all on shows like this. And it's what I call white paint. I call it, you know, at 63, I have a hunger every single day for new information. I want to hear from another coach. I want to hear from an author. I want to hear from Ben Caballero, Kenny Klaus, who's doing something that fires me up. I mean, Todd, I don't know. Can you tell I'm fired up?
Dude, I love seeing you so fired up. I mean, like, this is exactly what I was hoping we were going to get when we had you come on today. Crushing it.
But this is, thanks, man. But you know, it's genuine, right? This is the kind of thing that gets me fired up. This is the kind of thing that I bring into coaching sessions that we bring into the Masters coach, that stirs it up so that there's a sense of possibility and innovation and how could I do something different? And this guy's done it and she did it. Why couldn't I do something like that? So here's some things that I'm going to ask you to do. Go ahead. Somebody's got a comment.
Yeah, well, I want to say something. You don't have to respond now, but I'd like to get your thought on it, you know, at some point in this consciousness. But you know, you are so right. The best of the best are learners, and they're using the Mortgage Coach YouTube as their Netflix. You know, they're using their favorite podcast and audiobooks as their Netflix. So totally agree. And then I also have seen this trend. You know, like when I talk to Josh Metal, it's like, hey, I know not only do I need to keep consuming content, but then I also need to create content. And so you're starting to, you know, and by the way, that was, you know, while I have created interviews for over a decade now, you know, I had a personal epiphany a couple of years ago when I really elevated the Mortgage Coach YouTube channel, was that I was going to dedicate a certain amount of time, you know, to creation. So listen, learn, create. So at some point in this conversation, if you could just speak to how to balance for the local referral-based mortgage professional, how do you think they should be balancing their, you know, consumption, leading, and their creation? So whenever you want to speak to that, I just want to
let's do it now, man. That's a really great point. So Keith Collins, who you interviewed recently, is a great example of that, right? Keith is he was an individual top producer for the longest time. He's now become a market leader in Northern California with Movement Mortgage. And one of the things that he just kind of stumbled into, I've coached Keith for I don't know, 5 years or so now, but he stumbled into something that was really effective. And he realized that, I call them shareable videos. I don't know if he talked about in that interview or not, but friend Keith Collins with Movement Mortgage in Sacramento, actually Roseville, friend him on Facebook, just start watching his stuff go by on Instagram and Facebook. So here's what he did. He stumbled into this idea that he said, you know, because he's passionate, right? If you remember in that interview, like he shows up fired up, right? He's just that guy. And he said, you know what? People are confused about 20% down with down payments. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to record a video that just sort of dispels that, just a short one, and I'm going to push it out. Well, what he didn't expect was when he did that, realtors started to share it. Now think about this. I'm a mortgage lender. I record a short video on a topic that is completely in my wheelhouse that's going to help buyers buy homes or sellers sell homes. I push it out, realtor sees it and says, wow, that's going to benefit me and the buyers that I'm talking to. I'm going to push it out. He started to, I don't want to over exaggerate whatever the numbers were, but it was significant. I'll tell you that on a few weeks that we were talking about it, I remember him saying at one point he had 5 buyer leads, 5, that came in as a result of a free platform, Facebook, that happened because realtors shared the message. So he said, I've done this on renovation loans, right? I've done this on 203Ks. I've done this on 20% down, just whatever the issues are that you guys run into each and every day. Here's the way that I do it. I literally, so this is what my lineup looks like for the day. These are all my clients for the day. And as a thought occurs to me, I just start writing it down. I just start writing down thoughts that could become, like this one, Dave, is just ridiculous, but world-class team, right? It just came up one day that twice that had come up in a session where, again, Jen and Michelle, I'm sure you guys are wired this way. Todd, I know your team is wired like this with Tara at the helm, but the idea is top producers have world-class team members. Average people come into coaching sessions and say, yeah, you know, Barbara's got a bad attitude. I don't know what to do. So it hits me that there's an idea. So that's where content would come from me. And so what I would suggest to you, if you're a loan originator or you're a branch manager or watching this or a regional, start archiving. This is as basic as it gets, right? As old school as it gets, but I'm at this desk all day when I'm doing coaching sessions, standing or sitting. Put it in notes on your phone, right? Put it in Outlook, wherever, but just start looking for what are the patterns that I see of conversations or topics that are of interest, and then create content around that, Dave, and push that out. That would be my suggestion.
Love that. So 2 things for everybody on this call. 1, I recently did an interview with Keith. I'm going to post that in our group. It's called Personally Branded Advice Experience. It's awesome. So check that out. And then I'm also going to reach out to Keith in sometime in the next, 4 to 6 weeks. I will interview Keith on this topic. Also, it spurred in my mind that I think it was Tim Lamb last year started a project in our Facebook group where when he was starting his YouTube channel, he came up with a list of all the videos. If you were going to be a mortgage professional and create a YouTube channel, what are all those kind of one and done videos? And you could probably do a search in our Facebook group called YouTube channel and you'll find it. But Bill, great leadership, totally aligned. And I don't want to derail all the other stuff you have to share here.
Yeah, real quick on that, if you go to the file section of the Mortgage Coach Productivity Mastermind group, which is over on the left, you can download, there's 2 different documents that Tim shared with the group that are in there. And then as Dave mentioned, you can look on that thread. But I just love it, right? I mean, you're talking about what's right in line with what Dave's talking about, building your personal brand. And we should plug, Dave, that after I get back from speaking at Gary Vee's event, Agent 2021, in a couple of weeks, we've got a bunch of the leaders who are going to be on the mortgage platform there coming on to a call on a Tuesday call so that we can share what we shared there and what we learned. So I'm super excited to be doing that. We're with John Downs, who Bill and I both coach, with Brian Manning, who's coached by Michael Regan. We got some good members of the community that are going to be on stage alongside of us.
Absolutely. So I think in closing, and I don't know how we are in the expectation of time, but I'm going to need a little break before I hop into another 2-hour session if you're good with that. But in closing, if I'm going to encourage you to do anything, right? So it's reading, it's podcasts, it's coming on the Mortgage Coach YouTube channel. Dave, I love the idea of, like, if you're going to binge here, because here's what I know. If you start your day with something positive that's going to fire you up about how you're going to innovate, how you're going to show up in the marketplace, that's going to serve you a whole lot better than turning on world news. I strongly suggest you not do that. There's nothing in there that's going to fire you up. The last thing is I want you to be thinking about, Dave, you posted an image of me that said all in, right? And I sign all of my books, White Collar Warrior. If you don't have a copy, this might be a good one to pick up. If you're going to be in, be all in. And so it hit me recently that I need to start a podcast, and that's what it's going to look like. And you're going to see this podcast in the next 30 days or so, but it's going to happen. And it's not just mortgage lenders, you guys. I realize I am aware of more cool stories of people that are all in. Just a couple of examples. Singer Automotive Design is owned by a 90s rocker that had a 911, a Porsche 911. That you'll appreciate this, Todd, because you got a family full of Porsches, and a Prius.
A Prius, don't forget the Prius.
But that's another story. It balances, right? It balances. But this guy had this highly customized Porsche, right, with the amber taillights and the flared fenders. And he said people kept saying, hey, do you want to sell your car? And he said, I finally just realized I got tired of saying no. And I said, no, but I'll build you one. The guy has built a business in Sun Valley, California now where he customizes air-cooled 911s and sells them for $1 million to $1.8 million each. I think that's all in. So what you're going to hear in the podcast is not necessarily just mortgage professionals, although there will be some, and realtors, but there are people all over that I see that are all in, right? So here's what I want you to be thinking about. How can you show up in the marketplace all in? I want to personally challenge you, Bill Hart, to you. How are you going to be all in for 2019? This is not a time to dabble. This is a time to be all in. And if there's ever anything I can do to serve you, bill@buildingchampions.com. Email me, reach out. I'll do anything I can to help you. Dave, Todd, I love you guys like brothers. I appreciate the opportunity to hang out with you today. Hope it was worthwhile.
Super grateful to have you here, Bill. We'll debrief. You could jump out when you need to jump out. We've always got stuff to talk about, but thank you, brother.
So my pleasure. Thank you, guys. Michelle, Jen, thank you.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
Hey, Bill, before you go real quick,
Yep.
Have you started reading or heard much about the book Can't Hurt Me?
I have. I've just started reading it. David Goggins is not of this planet. And if you want to be challenged about the idea of all in, that guy's background and what he experienced is more than likely so much worse than what any of us have. And what he's built and what he's done to go through every Ranger, Air Force, and Navy SEALs training, no one else on the planet has ever done that. If you want to be challenged as to what's possible, that is a great read.
So I'm about 70% through the audiobook, and I can't stop. I mean, I'm like,
it's incredible.
I listened to work today. I'll be listening on the way home. I mean, I'll be done with it a day or two. And guys, when you just heard what Bill talked about, like we all have so much more capacity than what we're putting out, and let's have that be a theme for this month. Is
right on.
Let's go all in, bro. Hey, I can't wait to see your podcast. Make sure you share it in the group, and we can't wait to hear it.
Appreciate you guys.
Take care.
You're going to be in.
Here virtually, Bill.
Be all in. All right, buddy. See you guys.
All right, guys.
Hey, Dave, can you repeat the book? There's a question. Someone asked to repeat the book.
Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. And
I've heard the audiobook is the best one to buy because he and his co-author, they do a lot of backstory talking. Is that correct, Dave?
Yeah, the way they frame it at the beginning is it's like an audiobook and a podcast all in one. So while the guy who wrote it for him, they wrote it together, it's his story, is reading the book. But then after every chapter, like it's a story, they do a challenge, and it's kind of goes like 5 minutes ish of podcast after every chapter. And by the way, it's awesome. I mean, it's, there's a lot of F-bombs. It's not for everybody. I like the book a lot. I'm getting a lot of value from it. Highly recommend it for anybody that wants to optimize their personal potential. I put it on the must read list if you want to be an optimal human. All right, so let's do some debriefs. I do want to remind guys, this is a mastermind. If you're listening to this in video and you got value from it, give us a like. If you're watching it from our YouTube channel, share it with your team. If you think this is a valuable way to kick off the new year. So want to remind everybody to do that. Also, if you're watching this and you have questions for Bill, or something came up, a great quote, share it in comments. With that said, I'm going to hand it off to you, Todd. Why don't you give your debrief on this and then pull in Jen and Michelle to wrap up today's call.
We got less than 10 minutes. I'm going to make my debrief really simple because I want to hear what Jen and Michelle thought. I would just tell you I'm taking what Coach Bill said, and it's right there. I'm going to be all in 2019. And I just think that that's really critical. I mean, when you had a couple of ways that Bill kicked off the call. He said, getting serious, getting clear, and getting going. You had Dave saying that he's talking about prospecting, being a master advisor, and building your personal brand. And the bottom line is this. 90 days from now, some people on this call may not be in the business. At Win by Noon, I had my first email of the year with someone who said, Todd, I need to cancel my subscription. I'm no longer a loan officer, and I don't want that to be anyone in this community. And I just think you got to dig in. I think it's going to be a way to get, you may already have a little bit of momentum, but if you have a little bit, why not have a lot, right? Go all in, because there's other people who are in fear right now. And I think those of us who really take control, start driving our bus in the right direction, take some of these ideas. And I would say you heard a lot of ideas. I would just pick the first one, put that down as your first project, get that done before you move on to the next one. And you'll have an awesome year. So what do you think, Michelle?
Okay, so again, I like my C's, my C words. So I took the, get serious, get going, get clarity, and I turned it into be consistent, be compassion, clarity, commitment, and be creative. Those are kind of the things that I took away from this is, I've always talked about this kind of market for me is exciting because this is the market I came into. So this is normal for us, and this is where I excel. And I know that anybody that's been in this business or is even coming to this business, you can excel at this, if you follow what you believe and what you feel that you can do for your client. We talked about this last year, at the end of the last year, is knowing your client. I mean, that was huge for me in the Darren Hardy seminar, was understanding who my client was and who I should be marketing to. And 90% of it is your past clients. So I love what he talks about. I'm super jazzed as well. I could feel Bill's energy, and I love it because I come to empathize. I take everybody's energy and absorb it. My board, I don't know if I could show you my board without showing you all the mess in my room right now, but my board, I added a few more things to my board today, and a deal a day. That's such a great, idea, and, thinking of it that way. And it doesn't have to mean a closed deal a day. It has to mean, let's get a deal a day in the door, and let's get a pre-qual in the door. Let's get a just met client in the door. And I also loved about the promoting your own business. That was super important. And I remember that video from the interview from last year, and I did not execute on that. So that went onto my board for this year. So thank you for bringing him in, Todd. As always, you always bring special value to us.
Well, it was my pleasure. And it was, I always feel funny because I know that we all have a lot of content that we can add of value. And when Bill said, hey, I think I can make it so I'm available, I was like, hey, we gotta take advantage of that. So the energy he brought, I'm just so pumped with what that did for all of you. I'm watching the comments. That's great. How about you, Jen? I know you're recovering from a cold. Is your voice ready? It's in?
Yep. No, I'm stuffed up, but I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
You can.
Okay. All right. So ironically, I had something very similar to what Bill had, but I had 4 of them, and I just want to share them because I think that I love, getting serious, getting clear and getting going. But I need to just interject that I think is a really, really crucial before you get serious, because getting serious is a little bit of a difficult thing. It's like, okay, I'm going to get serious, right? And I think that something has to happen before that. And what I've been using is, I'm sick of it. Get sick of it. Get sick of not producing. Get sick of being an overthinker and an underperformer, right? Get sick of touting to referral partners that aren't reciprocating. Get sick of working with people who are mediocre on your team, around you, etc. And I think once you get to that capacity where you're just over it, it allows you to get serious. Does that make sense? So I just want to interject that because I think you have to get really just, I mean, there's no other way to say it. Then just get sick of it and say, I've had enough. And now it's time to get serious. And now it's time to get clear and get clarity and set goals and stop talking, take action. This is what I'm all about. My podcast is this. Everything I coach about is stop whining, get over it, and start taking action, right? Stop talking, take action. So I think you kind of have to get angry. It's in a positive way. It's not negative. I'm saying you have to get so motivated that you've just had enough of it. And that will motivate and inspire you to take action. So I just want to interject that to have everybody, take that step back and to say, I'm just kind of sick of this. So that's one thing. And Bill mentioned something, you have to know who you are. So one of the things that I've been working on with my coaching clients recently and in my speaking, because I don't work just with loan officers and realtors either, is yes, you need to know who you are. Everybody else is taken, be yourself. But this is a deep dive into who you are. It's because the second part of this question is, who are you trying to be? So if you said, well, I'm a caring person. Well, we're all caring most of the time, but not all the time. So who are you trying to be? A caring person? Are you really that caring person? Or what do you think others think you are, right? So don't say I'm a caring person or, I'm a go-getter, whatever the word is that you're using about yourself, about who you are, right? You're, an expert in the business. Is it what you think people think you should be or what you think people are talking about? Get down to the nitty-gritty of who you are. And the last question in that series is, who am I not? Who do I not want to be? I don't want to be an underperformer. Then don't be, right? And by the process of elimination, to make these 3 lists. Who am I? Who do I think that others think I want, think I am, or who do I want to be? And that makes me think that that's who I am. And then who don't I want to be? And through the process of elimination, you're going to really find out who your true self is. And that's one of the things that I've been really focusing on over the last year is, not chasing the shiny object, not trying to find new ways to solve problems. This is an inside job first. You've got to get very, very clear on who you are before you go out there and try to do all these things. And I think that so many people have lost opportunities, where these missed opportunities have happened while they're trying to, somebody said this once before, I can't remember who it was, chasing feathers, right? Just chasing feathers in the wind. And you've got to get real clear on who you are, what you want, how, the sustainability of being in this industry for, a long period of time that can create unbelievable wealth for you, unbelievable satisfaction for you as well. And so I just want to talk about that. And then the last thing is, I love the content around the daily when you have a question, I've talked about this, and check out my podcast too, because I did a whole session, 2 of them on this. I call it a daily digital deep dive. You get a question asked, turn it into a daily digital deep dive across all of the social media. Start with a YouTube lengthy, Facebook Live less lengthy, and then move into Instagram with quick little links to that daily deep dive.
Love it, guys. So awesome takeaways. It's been a fantastic call. By the way, I just posted in our Facebook group, what are you going to do this week, this month, to show that you're all in? So I can't wait to see what people are going to do. I love your spin on it. Like, what are you sick of? Get angry. Bring some of that dark energy to getting after it and take it to the next level. So Todd, thank you for bringing Bill. Reminder to everyone, we're going to have Wally Elderberry and a number of top producers that kill it with their past clients. So if you want to double the number of loans and referrals you get from your past customer database, Next Friday, 9 o'clock is going to be epic. And we're going to have a big call this Tuesday. So for those of you that are listening to the Tuesday call, check it out. And remember, if you got value from this, like it and share it with your friends. Have an awesome weekend, everybody, and Happy New Year. Take care.
Great seeing y'all. Happy January.